Another interesting speaker to attend Congress was Bruce Stephen Holmes, co-author of a new book entitled Incident at Fort Benning. Bruce's co-author and principal character in the book, John Vasquez, was the subject of a filmed interview we conducted in Laughlin some 4 years ago. Until then, few had heard of John Vasquez, let alone his incredible story. Later, we will show a brief segment of our interview with John, but for now, let us hear Bruce Stephen Holmes describe how he first chanced upon John and what led him to take more than a passing interest in his remarkable story.
And basically, the book is about a very interesting situation that occurred in September 1st of 1977. And it was at Fort Benning, Georgia, where John was stationed as a recruit. And actually, he was a volunteer. He wasn't really a recruit, but I use the word recruit. And when he first arrived at Fort Benning, he was in formation for the welcoming speech with the captain. And at the same time, there were about 1,300 troops all on this formation. And as they were standing there waiting for the welcoming speech, what occurred was something really dramatic. There were some lights shining and flashing down at one end. They were in formation with Alpha Company first, then Bravo, then Charlie, and then finally Delta. John was in the Delta division. He looked down, and they were supposed to be facing forward in the attention, but people started running. And he began to watch the lights coming forward over Alpha. People were running, and it was total chaos. It moved up to Bravo, then Charlie, and finally to Delta. Obviously, what was happening was really strange. John began to notice that the people who weren't running seemed to be frozen or asleep in formation. And he looked over at the captain. The captain who was about to give the speech was fast asleep. And the last thing John remembers is that he must have lost consciousness, because the next thing he knows is he was looking at his feet. One of the most amazing events that I've ever heard of. Namely that 1,300 troops were, or possibly 1,300 troops, were abducted on a UFO on this particular day. That's the first chapter of the book. The book goes through about 2 or 3, maybe 4 other major events that occurred during this 2-week period, and finally culminates at the end with an actual combat maneuver between the troops and a UFO. When I first met John and he told me the story, my first question, and I guess I wasn't really listening to him, was what did everybody think about after it happened? Well, in actuality, while this event occurred in 1977, John's recollection of it started in April of 1989 when he began having nightmares. Quite through some synchronicity, I had a chance to speak with a gentleman who was at Fort Benning in September of 1977 and said to me, "I have no knowledge of this event." And I said, "Well, it was in September." And he said, "September." And he said to me, he said, "You know, I don't remember anything about September." And I said, "Well, that seems normal to me, because after all, how many people can remember a particular month?" But as we talked, he became more and more agitated, until finally we had to stop talking, because he was actually becoming almost on the verge of violence over this idea that he couldn't remember September. We've spoken since, and I don't even mention Fort Benning, and he has no recollection of the fact that we even talked about it. So it's a very strange thing. I think that there are a lot of troops out there who are having all kinds of physical and mental problems, but have not yet had that awakening experience that John had.
To read a book about one man and his extraordinary allegations, quite another to see that same man relate his story in front of the camera. See what you make of John as he describes some of the most telling moments from the incident at Fort Benning.
This female voice told me to go to sleep, and next thing happened is that this face, a male face, I know it was a male because that's what I felt, was telling me to look in his eyes. And the image that came across was that the first one was myself standing on an ocean all by myself, and there was a blue sky, and the next image was the whole planet being destroyed bits by bits. And the next image happened was a face, a human face, and his face was all pale, white, paste-like face. During this time, I saw Sergeant Turner, who was standing across me, and he was in a summer uniform, khakis. And I thought at that time, he spilled coffee on his trousers, but apparently he had an accident. And some of us started falling down, as if we lost balance, and I fell down too because everything seemed to have spinning around, and that was unusual. And when I got up, I started to walk away, and some of the people, or some of the guys who was in formation, started getting sick. They started vomiting and getting sick and falling down.
Few of the speakers at this year's 10th International Congress and Film Convention commanded the respect and admiration afforded to Dr. Roger Leir. In Hard Evidence 5, we included incredible footage of the surgical removal of an alleged alien implant by a team led by Dr. Leir. But what new evidence, we wanted to know, had he brought with him to Laughlin?
Well, they've kindly given me 2 hours to present some new material, as well as review some of the older material on the implant surgeries, and I'm going to talk about some of the latest findings that we have on TIM surgery, which was performed February the 5th of the year 2000. The second hour, I'm going to broach a brand new subject and offer a theory why alien abductions are occurring worldwide. And I brought the statistics and graphical material to prove that the human race is undergoing a tremendous biological and change not only biologically but also in our consciousness. And I've done this by supporting 17 different developmental growth characteristics in children. And when I present this material, I expect the audience to prove that my statistics that I gathered in 1987 are going to be very, very conservative. And what I've done is to take a 40-year period, 1947 to 1987, and I'm going to point out 17 different developmental characteristics that have changed dramatically in 40 years. And this change far surpasses what is possible from a normal evolutionary trend. And also, since I've discussed this subject and have been taking notes for some years now in other countries over the world, I've eliminated the possibility of environmental factors or health factors. So, barring unknown changes in the planet or something that's unseen in evolution, the only possible explanation can be that the human race is being genetically manipulated, and we're beginning to now see the results of that. So that's what I'll be presenting in the second hour tomorrow afternoon, Friday, at 4:30 here at the UFO Congress, Laughlin, Nevada.
And just to focus on a couple of specific areas, we're talking about potential genetic manipulation through all classes and through all, it's not a boundary thing. We're talking about facts and statistics gleaned from areas around the world.
That's correct. The statistics are taken from books in the United States, but I've verified the same statistics in interviewing mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, brothers, cousins, about the children and everywhere from third world countries to places where the life is still very primitive without the influence of television. And I've looked into factors such as pollutants and the parents being influenced with drugs or alcohol. All these factors seem to have no place whatsoever in these statistics.
During our visit to Laughlin, we came across one individual, a scientist by profession who prefers anonymity at this present time, who handed over several videotapes after a private viewing. Little is known about the anomalous activity you're about to see, except that it was recorded in the utmost secrecy.